All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Good to see you. Yeah. It's 9/11. I thought I was going to avoid it, and I don't know, avoid addressing it or something. It's a little hard for me, anyways, because it's super important. I know. Oh, I know. But nothing is more important than climate change and the destruction of the planet. I mean, yes. Yes. Sure. I totally agree with that. But there are, important things that happen in history that it is really important, incumbent on one to be aware of. And so, things that shape the future and shape what are going on now, and the climate crisis is certainly a large looming problem, and we have to be ready and able, and cognitively and emotionally, to deal with a polycrisis. There are multiple things going on in the world, not just climate change, and you don't know when everything's going to collapse due to climate change. You just don't know this. You don't know how long you're going to have to survive a day-to-day existence with many factors, right? It could be economic collapse long before there's climate collapse. There could be a heightened authoritarian control long before there's climate collapse. And you will have to deal with these things. You will have to be alive on the planet and deal with these things accordingly, or try and prevent these things. What if you want to live out your days trying to be a better steward of the planet? And if you are locked down into a smart city, or locked into a particular area, not able to leave and not able to buy food without a social credit score, well, that's not going to be a very fun way to end it all, is it? So, I'm not talking about necessarily the freedom to just do whatever you want and to trash the planet. That's not what I'm talking about. But we're going to need, the ability to build community. You're going to need the freedom, to be free people, to exert control over the power structure that regulates your life. You have to be able to do that in order to build community and do what's needed to address the climate crisis and multiple other things. So, so that's why I like to talk about all these things. I am going to talk about a little bit of climate change to open the show. Yes, and that's a good point, Basil. I'm not going to take any calls right now. I see you, Chardell. I'm not going to take any calls right now. I'm going to cover some things first, and then we may get into some calls later, okay? Sorry about that. But let's get into it, and we'll I'll try and do this quickly because there's a lot to talk. There's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. It's probably too short of a time to cover important topics, but we do our best. Let's start with this from Caitlin Johnson. Very, very good acknowledgement of what we're doing to the planet and where things are going as far as biosphere destruction. You may disagree with Caitlin Johnson on several things. She is a believer in the idea that overshoot and, well, I don't know about overshoot, but she believes that we're destroying the planet, and I think that's pretty obvious. I think that's pretty obvious. Okay, humans are destroying the planet. Sorry if you don't believe that, but pollution is so bad, and we're polluting the earth, and all the fertility rates are going down because we're polluting ourselves. Oh, but we don't have any effect on climate change. All right, get it straight. What do you believe in? Those are two conflicting ideas, right? Humans can't possibly alter the, course of the climate. However, we're polluting ourselves to death. Okay, which one is it? Because it's actually the same thing there, brother. An unspoken premise of capitalism is that someone will invent technology which allows humanity to keep consuming at a frenetic pace and keep expanding the economy without destroying the biosphere we depend on for survival. That's the only way we can make capitalism look like a sustainable model for our planet. But that isn't going to happen. We're never going to consume our way out of the ecosystemic problems we consumed our way into. Technology has helped our species in many ways and will continue to, but no amount of technological innovation is going to make it possible to continue infinite economic expansion on a finite planet with finite resources and an ability to absorb a finite amount of disruption. Human behavior itself is what needs to change, and it needs to change drastically, and it needs to change soon. No amount of technological innovation will ever circumvent that urgent need. We're like a smack addict trying to figure out ways they can keep using at a high volume without compromising their relationships and employment. We're like a miserable narcissist believing he can become happy if everyone in his life changes to accommodate his inner demons and facilitate his happiness. Everyone wants change and nobody wants to change, but that is what's being asked of us. In the age of Bernays, capitalism shifted from a need-based economy to a desire-based economy, which tugs at the strings of the ego to fuel an insatiable drive to consume and produce and reject contentment with the way things are, and we're going to have to uproot what those strings are attached to in order to survive. Believing human consciousness can remain chained to these frenetic egoic patterns which drive us to consume and hoard and flail around in a constant state of restlessness and discontentment without destroying the biosphere, if we can only come up with the right clever new trick, is just a form of spiritual bypassing to avoid doing the real work that needs to get done in ourselves. Can I get a ding? Our species has come to its adaptation or extinction juncture in its development on this planet. And the adaptation that's being asked for is a drastic change in human consciousness. We're going to have to grow up and become a conscious species now. Daddy technology isn't coming to our rescue. It's on us. It's time to wake up and free ourselves from the dream of egoic consciousness so we can begin collaborating with each other and with our ecosystem towards a healthy and a harmonious world. Exactly right. Very good from Caitlin Johnson. I really like that. Remember when I said the other day we're operating on a 5-year-old, emotionally a 5-year-old, humans operate as emotional 5-year-olds. Now, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about on the whole. Humans as a collective operate like 5-year-olds emotionally. Well, he's got all the stuff. I want all the stuff. I want my stuff. If I don't have all the stuff he has, then I feel like I'm not actually worth anything. I'm not a real person. I'm not a good person. Anyways, I won't go off on that. I want to get to talking about 9/11, so I'm going to get through what's happening. Just a little bit about what's happening on the planet. This is Spain last night. Again. Maybe some people are capable of making things happen in a particular place for a particular reason somewhere. I'm not actually not opposed to that idea at all, but I don't think you can make the planet act, the entire planet act as if it's heating up. That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy, and if you somehow create, the circumstances in which the entire planet is heating up and causing this level of calamity, well, that's a dumb thing to do because it takes a heck of a lot of energy to do that, and it takes probably even more energy to stop that. It takes a whole lot of energy to stop that. So it's not a very good plan. What's this? This is a Matthew Todd. My God, this is the taste of the future. The planet is shifting out of the only stable climate modern humans have known. We have been warned for 35 years. True story. Absolutely true. We've been warned for 30. Hey, man, they've been telling us climate change been happening. It's going to happen. And where is climate change? Bro, if somebody would cover what's going on globally, if just one of these alternative, it's this one. Sorry, it's this one. It's Black Bear News. If just one of these alternative news channels would cover climate change, like focus on it. Hey, look what's happening over here. All this stuff is happening. Well, then people would see it. People wouldn't be able to go like, "Where's the climate change?" Well, it's over here, bro. We're covering it every single day. Oh, I don't know if I want to look. I don't believe that's happening. Okay. It's always great when you give people proof of something and they go, "Nah, that's not real." But it certainly is real. It's actually happening. Catastrophic situation in Jabal Akhdar after the flood level in some neighborhoods exceeded 2 meters of rainfall. This is in Libya. Libya just got smacked down. Oh man, I'm loving what's going on in the chat, guys. You guys are woke. Truly woke. I dig it. What happened in Libya? 2,000 people believed dead. Wow. 2,000 people believed dead. Hundreds of people are still missing. Entire blocks of homes washed away. Many bridges and roads destroyed. City declared a disaster zone. At least 2 confirmed dam failures. Urgent international response needed. They just got smacked. This is by a storm. Crazy. All right. And excuse me. In China, also getting smacked still. I mean, Daniel was very slow moving. Was wrecking Greece for a week, then went down to Libya and wrecked Libya. Yeah, I mean, yes, Allison. Who is covering this? Nobody. Not mainstream media. Not alternative media. Nobody is covering this. Therefore, everybody can continue making dumb posts on Twitter. Oh, they've been talking about climate change for a long time. Where is it? I don't know. Did you wake up this morning and look around, just cursory glance? Oh, geez. Anyways. This is wild. Today, two big cities in China, Xi'an and Shanghai, were hit by violent rainstorms. Among them, Shanghai Pudong received 105 millimeters of rainfall in 45 minutes. Xi'an, located in the inland northwest, also experienced 64 millimeters of rainfall in 1 hour, causing severe waterlogging. Man. Okay. And I know there is more stuff. There's more. Let's see. All right, we're going to talk about 911 is a joke. No, I'm kidding. Remember that song? Flavor Flav. I mean, I guess it is a joke on some levels. The explanation is a joke. Hold on 1 second, guys. All right, we got some birds. We got some birds. Let's see. Give me 1 second, people, if you will. All right. Okay, pardon me for the distraction. All right. Okay, so 9/11 is important to understand. Why? Because I mean, I think that there are some more major. There's lots of conspiracies that have been shown to be true. Or if you understand just even a few of the things that went on, they're actually true, right? Like, and I think there's smaller ones, there's larger ones. You know, the assassination of MLK, Malcolm X, the Gulf of Tonkin. You could probably put the assassination of RFK, as a lesser one. But I think, the assassination of JFK obviously doesn't look. I don't know how somebody could actually believe the story that they put forward. I don't think many people do. But it's been proposed that there was that actually constituted a coup. And if that's true, then we've never had, did we ever get, if that was a coup, like an internal coup maybe by the intelligence agencies or the military industrial complex or whatever you want to say, that we've never really had, has there been a sign that somebody has taken back the government from this military industrial complex that took over the government? I don't see it. But I think you have major psyops, I guess, or conspiracies / psyops that are that have shaped, have become large idea shapers and kind of momentum shapers as far as where the how the world was going to proceed into the future politically and economically, all kinds of ways, right? Um, so I look at it as, JFK, the assassination, 9/11, and COVID actually were major psyops in the last, how many years now? 60 years. That are defining, right? Very, very defining moments, and it's really important that you understand, what actually went down. And people are still trying to unravel what happened with COVID, but it's really important to understand what went down. Because if you don't understand, then you're living in a fantasy world. And that's fine. Lots of people do well in fantasy land, right? Lots of people. Lots of people do well, going like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go to college, going to get a good job. Right? I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to buy a house, going to, do the thing, have a family. Lots of people are doing fine with that. Right? You can live outside of you can live in your own little bubble and maybe even a small part of you can understand that you live that we live in in a facade of a democracy. But as long as everything's working for you and things are, sure, you can go forward. But it's important to understand what was going on, what went on, what happened, and I think the basic understanding that okay, well, this really major event happened, and then the people in charge tried to tell you this completely ridiculous story about why it happened and how it happened and all that kind of stuff, and for the most part, a lot of people believe that. A lot of people don't. The question is how, what do you do about it? That has always been my the thing that I get hung up on is, I understand the significance of a JFK assassination or a 9/11, but I have no idea. I have no clue where to even start unraveling the Gordian knot of what is it that we actually do about such a thing. But, the understanding of it is important, is primal to figuring out that Gordian knot. Oh man, and before I get into this, let me play this. Let me play this. That has everybody seen the Woody Harrelson clip? By the way, little known fact: it is an urban legend that Woody Harrelson's dad worked for the CIA and that he was present on the day that JFK was assassinated. That is that is something that's put out there. So it's very interesting that Woody Harrelson is seen, held up as something of a truth teller. That's fine. Maybe maybe he sees it for what it is and he's trying to call it out, but just letting you know. But let's listen to Woody Harrelson say this about the U.S. or about the Ukraine war, which is pretty funny.
The kind of guy who just thinks it's abominable when a superpower with all this military might, with no provocation, attacks just unprovoked, attacks a country that is, Iraq, I'm sorry, Korea, no, sorry, Ukraine. Terrible. I lost my way there. The kind of guy who just thinks it's a bomb.
That's pretty good. Pretty good commentary from Woody Harrelson. Um, no, Free Parsons. I have to disagree with you on that one. Uh, I don't. I mean, I just disagree with you, but it's fine. I don't know. I think there's a lot of psyops. I do agree with you that there are psyops within the movement of the truth movement. I do agree with you on the thing about the physics behind the planes crashing into the buildings doesn't make any sense. Therefore, ain't no planes. So sorry to tell you that. There ain't no planes. Planes do not cut through steel like butter. Aluminum planes don't cut through steel like butter. So ain't no planes. Period. You don't understand physics. If you think planes hit the building, you don't understand physics. Period. Ain't no argument about that. But anyways, it's fine. You can disagree with me, but go study physics, figure that out. Really look at it. But here we go. Well, let's get into a couple things. This is great. I think everybody has seen this, or maybe nobody's seen this, but this is a really good synopsis. We're going to start with this, and we'll move through a bunch of things. From James Corbett, this is a great 5-minute video that really encapsulates a lot of the weirdness that goes on, that went on 9/11, and kind of it's a good primer.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon and the Budget Analyst Office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-Tech, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
Failure of imagination.
because
By our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her, and her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about...
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
And...
They took the babies out of incubators.
And...
Mobile production facilities.
And...
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit, paranoid, tinfoil, dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, NSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
Great work by James Corbett on that one. He did actually, James Corbett just did a show about Fukushima. It was very recent. I think it was in the last couple of weeks. They covered the release of the water into the ocean. Free Parsons, I don't, I know that I've pissed you off, and I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say. You know, I know you think you know, and I know you insist that you know, and maybe it sounds like I'm insisting that I know. What I'm saying is, there's zero resistance, man. Zero resistance. So, just think on that one. And also the fact that you're saying that there was so much force. There's people that are saying that plane could not fly at that speed, at that altitude, or the plane would fall apart. There's lots of, pilots that attest to that. So the physics, there are lots of things going on, but the physics don't just apply to the impact, but they apply to the speed of the plane not being possible at that. There's resistance. No, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. We'll continue to go. We'll agree to disagree. Okay. We'll agree to disagree. It's fine. State your case. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just going to continue going on with this though. One more second, y'all. Let's see. Okay. So let's go on to the next. There are so many interesting posts to look at and things in here. Let's listen to this. I know you're going to totally disagree with this, but let's start with Chris Martenson, and we'll move on to Trump, what Trump said about the buildings. Chris Martenson, very, very intelligent dude. Resistance is futile. Chris Martenson, and we're going to talk about free fall, collapse. We're going to talk about a plane that wasn't hit. I mean, a building that wasn't hit by a plane, or a plane that wasn't hit by a building. We could talk about that too. This building was not hit by a plane. Supposedly collapsed due to office fires. Really quickly. Just for a quick physics lesson, if this building actually just collapsed in on itself, it would be just, a couple floors pancaking, or it would lean to one side, or it would be a lot slower. But this falls into its own footprint. And the only thing, if you line this up next to a controlled demolition, it looks exactly like a controlled demolition because it's a controlled demolition. Because Larry Silverstein said there was such a loss of life, we decided to pull it. Pull it? What do you mean pull it? Pull the building down? I mean, he literally admitted that they pulled the building down. We decided to pull it on TV, on national TV. The dude decided to admit that they pulled the building down. This is not a natural collapse. There's no resistance here. Anyways, Chris Martinson explains 2.25 seconds of free fall with building 7 completely ruins the government's 9/11 explanation hypothesis. This was my red pill. He says, I'm a scientist by training and a natural born skeptic. Even a single bit of data can completely undo a hypothesis. Explaining that. And then I know you don't want to hear. There's an interesting video out there of, apparently Trump wrote a book pre 9/11 that basically predicted 9/11. He said there's going to be an attack and they'll blame it on Osama bin Laden. And they're like, what? How did he predict it? I don't know. It's weird. Let's see. So this is Trump talking about how incredibly strong these buildings are. Incredibly strong these buildings are. Incredibly strong. Built of steel. The thing to know, I'll get to my conclusion, which I've said my conclusion before, and I'll say it again at the end of the show. Hold on. It's important to know. I guess it's important to know what happened so that you can come to the correct conclusion, or somewhere close to the correct conclusion. But this is Trump calling into a show on 9/11 during a live broadcast and explaining. You may not think much of Trump, but he was involved in building a lot of buildings and should know something about a little something about something of the building of the buildings. I don't know.
I said, how could even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through this deal? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid. And, it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today, and it's going to be different than it ever was for many years to come.
He's correct. He's actually very correct. It doesn't really, It doesn't matter that Donald Trump is speaking those words. The things that he's saying are absolutely correct. And everybody tries to tell me like, oh, or people will say, oh, it's just just glass and aluminum. No, 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 no. The outside of those buildings were steel, very heavy steel, exactly as he said, because he knows what he's talking about. He knew how those buildings were built. So, and lots of other people confirm exactly what he said. They were built to withstand. They were built to withstand a direct hit from a 747. And again, the way that the way those planes slice through defies physics. It defies physics. There has to be an opposite of, there has to be resistance, an opposite effect on the planes. They would not just, the planes are much lighter, built of a much lighter material than the buildings were. So you would see, in a regular crash, you would most likely see, maybe the plane went into the building a little bit, but mostly you would see a lot of debris, right? You would see resistance against the plane. You would see wings flying off, engines, tail pieces, right? Shattered planes. If you've seen an accident, if you've seen a plane crash, what about when a plane crashes into the ground? Does it pulverize? Well, they tried to tell you on that day that a plane just pulverized itself into little tiny pieces. Again, no, it's not. Free Parsons, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry to say, and I disagree with you. Okay, I know it seems really mean, but I'm not. Anyways, there would be some resistance. There would be, wings, tail pieces, something. Yes, Basil Peterson, good point. Where did all the material go? They immediately chopped everything up and trucked it out before it could even be analyzed. Well, if it's the greatest crime of ever in the history of the U.S., if it was the most amazing crime, the biggest terrorist attack ever, wouldn't you want to forensically analyze everything that happened? Wouldn't you want to keep everything exactly where it was for a little while, maybe a couple of years and sift through it? But you just shipped it out. You shipped it off to China in boats and barges immediately. That's not suspicious. Not at all. Okay. Let's keep going. But that, we're just going through some of the why, because this is just, I don't talk about this every day. This is the day to do it. Just going through it. That's Chris Martinson. We already looked at that. Here's George W. Bush giving away the game a little bit. Russ Taylor, that part. So you believe the NIST report, Free Parsons? Okay. Listen to George W. Bush.
Pause to mark the 5th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. The information that the Central Intelligence Agency has obtained by questioning men like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has provided valuable information and has helped disrupt terrorist plots, including strikes within the United States. For example, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed described the design of planned attacks on buildings inside the U.S. and how operatives were directed to carry them out. That is valuable information for those of us who have the responsibility to protect the American people. He told us the operatives have been instructed to ensure that the explosives went off at a point that was high enough to prevent people trapped above from escaping. He told us the operatives had been instructed to ensure that the explosives went off at a point that was high enough to prevent people trapped above from escaping. The explosives.
He said, maybe that was a Freudian slip. I don't know. Let's keep going. This is, also pretty amazing. This is from the Gray Zone. I don't mean to be Free Parsons. I don't mean to be. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. And I'm sorry if I am being rude or mean. Or to anybody else who doesn't like what I'm saying, but just consider how much you might be, tied to the actual story. Because if the actual story weren't true, it might mean something else is true, and which I will state at the end of the show. Something else is true, and it is true. But it might make you feel a little strange inside to actually realize that, or even say it. The Gray Zone. This is actually from a few months ago. 2 of the hijackers were apparently CIA operatives. Whoa. I'm not going to really... 9/11 hijackers were CIA recruits. At least 2. And here's the part that's really damning. That basically the hijackers were brought in with the help of Saudi intelligence at the request, basically at the behest and at the request of the CIA. Okay? So that is very interesting news. And basically this information came out. Biden released some Biden released some documents recently, and this is what these documents showed. I don't have time to read this all. I just want to get down to this part. That the CIA was working with Saudi intelligence to help these operatives get into the United States. And you can ask the questions of why. I suggest going to read this because I don't have time to read all that. That's interesting, right? Then you have then you have the money. The plane that hit the plane, quote unquote plane, that hit the Pentagon, hit the office where they were trying to figure out where the $2.3 trillion went. Isn't that just crazy coincidental? Isn't that just wildly coincidental that the plane, which didn't act like a plane, hit the Pentagon right in the budget office? Which is where I aim. Whenever I try to hit something, I try to hit it in the budget office. Right? They're trying to crack the case. Where did all this money go? And when did we learn? God dang it. Hey. Sorry. When did we learn that all this money was missing? We learned the day before. The day before. Again, that is weirdly coincidental. I don't know.
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we
for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere 300 million.
Anyways, just more yes, more weirdness. There's more to look at. I'm just trying to paint a picture here. I mean, so many things happened. You had insider trading going on prior to 9/11. You had, well, let me show you this. Larry Silverstein taking out insurance. Larry Silverstein taking out insurance right before the thing. Real quick, I'm going to go probably a couple minutes long, but if you guys enjoy the show, you know the deal. You want to support the show, paypal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, Venmo @Kevin Sandbloom, Cash App at Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Black Bear News. You can also super chat me, super ray me, and all that kind of good stuff, all right? And I will check in messages at the end of the show. All right. Let's. What's up, William? How you doing?
Kevin,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Oh, good. Hey, I never heard George Bush say that. I'm glad you played that.
I didn't hear that actually until today either, but he said a lot of weird things.
Yeah. Well, I think for anyone who's questioning, we mentioned yesterday, the debris pile was approximately 2 stories high. It's a 110-story building. If the pancake theory were real, it would be a 20-story debris pile minimum from what I'm reading.
Well,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if the pancake, or if it was a collapse, you wouldn't have debris shooting out.
Yeah, right.
You know, very heavy steel beams and, shooting outward from the building. It takes energy to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And gravity alone and the so-called pressure from the top floors would not cause that debris to just shoot out like that. Yeah, from the top, you know what I mean? Like coming straight out of the top or coming, shooting out several feet from the sides. That wouldn't happen.
Right, and you got 9/11 Architects and Engineers for Truth to talk about the thermate demolitions. Building 7 as a smoking gun, and the other 2 as well. Plus, the engineer who designed those towers, as you said, actually designed them to absorb multiple plane impacts, given the height of the buildings. Also, you have Dr. Judy Wood and that would help explain her smoking guns. I got a bunch of links in the chat, by the way. Anything I'm mentioning, I have reference for. People can check it out after you, because that'll be in the show even after you end it. You know, people can play it back and they'll come up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you go to the call-in app.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, well, she shows justification where the towers are built in sections, 3-foot story, like rice check, vertical and horizontal beams that were bolted together, then welded, and then sprayed with obviously fire retardant asbestos base. The point being is, as one of those sections dropping, it's solid. Kev, I don't know if you've ever seen it, and as it's dropping, it actually turns to dust. You can watch.
I have seen that.
Yeah. Whoa, that's what was like, what? Oh my God.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that I do find some of her analysis compelling.
Well,
you know, I don't agree with everything that Judy Wood has to say, but some, you know, her some of her initial observations are incredibly compelling.
Oh yeah, where's the seismic footprint? Where's the debris pile? I mean, there's so much missing. And you have Alan Sobrowski, War College professor. I got a video in the chat where he's saying, you know, he also cites the USS Liberty and says Mossad was involved with both, and it was an inside job, Mossad and traitors in our own country. There's a guy who's a U.S. Marine. You have Major General Stubblebine, Army Surveillance, who said, I can prove it wasn't a plane that hit the Pentagon. John Lear's sworn affidavits are in the live chat. You know, there's so much. Where was NORAD? They're going to all be out on a training exercise. Kevin, you're incident commander. What's your primary objective? Protect the Northeast Corridor. You're not going to abandon it for a training exercise, right?
And I actually saw, you know, somebody who is like an alternative journalist, I guess, you know, well respected on Twitter, saying like they weaponized an attack, right? Weaponize this attack. I'm like, they didn't weaponize. No, they did it. Okay, they did it, or they allowed it to happen, or they manufactured it. They didn't weaponize it. So, my, you know, I'm going to cover a little more, but I basically just want to state, you know, whatever it is that did it. You know, once you realize that this was as well orchestrated as it was, then it has to be glaringly obvious. And nobody, you know, I know that the thing that people like to do is to show all these weird inconsistencies and let people draw conclusions. But the conclusion that people should draw, because I like to take logical steps in my thinking, and it's okay to say what the next step is. The logical step is, you know, all of this evidence points to the fact that the people in the government or elements in the government orchestrated this, made this happen, killed, you know, did a terrorist attack on their own country, and should be held accountable as such, right? They should be, you know, in prison for treason, or worse than in prison. And on top of that, I'm going to say any politician or anybody who, you know, would have any access to, you know, information on what really happened that day. Any politician since that time, I would even include the media as culpable in this too, right? The media should be held accountable or held in prison for treason, et cetera, et cetera. Any politician who comes up and says the words, well, that fateful day of the terrorist attack, right? Covering is an accomplice in this crime, right? There are people who are guilty of this crime. There are people who are guilty of of being accomplices in this crime, and they should be held accountable as such. I'm sorry. That's just, you know, that's my conclusion. That's how I think, and that's, you know, people need to. I feel like people need to just come out and say this more often, right? Like there are people that are criminal that did, you know, that actually fomented a terrorist attack on the country and scrambled everybody's brains for, you know, years and years and years, did all kinds of illegal tampering with the Constitution because of it, et cetera. It's torture, getting us into, 2 illegal wars and responsible for millions of deaths. Like, these people should be held accountable for all of those crimes. And people need to just come out and say, these people did this and they need to be held accountable for that. Period. End of story. You know, like, that's what happened, right? So, and this is recent enough that those people are still around and can be held accountable. This is recent enough that those people can be, questioned on this, found guilty on this, whatever it is, arrested, taken into custody, whatever. Like, these people need to be held accountable, point blank. And this is what went down, and this is a big part of the reason why we are, everything is falling apart, because our constitutional rights have been eroded, by the Patriot Act and the NDAAs and all that kind of stuff. And the military industrial complex is stronger than ever. And it's just, oh, hey, I'm going to invite, who is this? Osama, I'm going to invite you to speak. So you can come into this conversation as well.
Yeah. Yeah, can I add a couple of quick things?
Yeah.
Okay. How about the BBC reporter? Talk about a scripted, orchestrated event. She's talking about Building 7 having collapsed, and it's behind her.
Right.
Hasn't even dropped yet. I mean, how does that even happen? I mean, what? Right. It's totally scripted.
Exactly. So this was a thing. This was a pre-planned, conspiracy to make this event happen and to cover it up and to have, all the other things that went, to have the military doing a drill somewhere else and all of those things. That it was completely orchestrated. It was not a, oh, whoa, how did this happen? There was no, oh my God, this is so crazy. Nobody, and they had, on top of that, they had intelligence reports, coming in for a year on this. So it wasn't.
Also,
there was no surprise about this. There was no surprise. It was, everybody knew, people knew. People helped it happen. People made it happen. And let's just, let's call a spade, and let's find out who we need to start going, that guy. Like, we need to start questioning why it isn't, why it is that people can't be held accountable for this.
Well, you have 9/11 Lawyers for Truth who still can't get a grand jury investigation opened. It's been 22 years. They've been trying.
Right.
9/11 Lawyers for Truth. They still can't get it. So, boy, Chanel, do you love to hear
Osama, I invited you to speak, but I don't know if you want me to just
maybe he's having a technical difficulty.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, man? Can you hear me? Anyways,
yeah, also, Kev,
I know that that's just not very fashionable thing to do, to just go out and just say, like, it's, these people did this, it was somebody's fault, and somebody needs to be held accountable. Like, we can talk about how weird it was all day long, but what we need to do is talk about this happened because these people did this thing. Who are the people? Right. Those people. We know who they are. We can go down the list. Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, George Bush, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. All the people that were part of, part of the whole thing, right? Or at least knew it was going to happen and allowed it to happen, whatever you want to say. But, like, let's, I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of a silly thing to spend a lot of time talking about. It's not silly, but it's getting old, spending a lot of time talking about how all these crazy things happen together, but, like, we need to go forward and move, hey, how are we going to hold these people accountable? Like, when do we start, actually naming names and taking people, trying to get people held accountable for this? I don't know. I just feel like we should just move to the next step, right? These people are guilty of these crimes. They committed these crimes. Obviously, these crimes have been committed, right? Yeah. They knew about it. Guilty as hell, right? Let's go. Let's go with the, You can't unmute on Colin? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
There he is.
Can you unmute now? I see you're in the speakers thing. Let's see.
And Kev, here's something else implausible. You learn to fly a Cessna, and you're going to get behind the controls of a 757 or a 767, depending on which destination they were going. Like you knowing how to drive a car and get behind a tank. You know what I mean? I mean, come
Right.
on. It's completely implausible that they'd have the skill set to do that. The guy who trained them said they could barely fly the Cessnas. So, there's no way.
Yeah.
The whole thing falls apart.
Hold
But
on. Hold on 1 second, William.
yeah,
Can you still not unmute, Osama?
Kev, if he calls back in, if he hangs up and tries again,
Yeah.
sometimes
Try hang up and get back in, and I'll
yeah, sometimes even get out of the room and come back in, because sometimes it's just a glitch in the app. It does weird stuff calling out.
Osama, I'm gonna remove you from speaker, but just add yourself as a caller back in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Maybe this will work. I just invited you to speak again. All right. Let's see. No. Still not working?
Can I make a suggestion? He gets out of the room altogether and reloads the room. It could just be weirder things have happened.
Yeah, I know. I was actually gonna. Sometimes I have to reload. The room too, because it glitches out. But I don't want to kick you out of the.
It's working for us. I don't see why. I don't think it's your end, but I don't know. You mentioned the.
All right, now you're on. All right.
I have to restart my browser.
Okay, cool. What's up, man?
brother?
How you doing, William?
You all right, man?
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. 22 years. Seems crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Wow.
But still hasn't been a grand jury investigation. Those lawyers can't get it. The New York District Court, federal court, or the DA or whoever it takes, the DOJ, somebody, but they get it done.
Well, we're 60 years from Kennedy, and
yeah,
I'm a little discouraged that this is going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, they seem to be. They seem to have.
Down the road.
Yeah.
Well, 40 years down the road. Anyway, I just thought I'd check in, being the one of the patsies.
You mentioned cold fusion nuclear. I know that's been explored. Where would it be, in the building, in the basement, cold fusion, or would that be?
No,
how would that be delivered?
These were small devices that were placed every couple of floors.
I see.
That's what you see. How each floor is shooting out.
Yep.
And because if it were a collapse, as Judy says, the floor that's getting hit by the top floor is at zero velocity, so it has to start from zero velocity. So that each floor would incur a delay.
Yes.
So 11 seconds, totally impossible. Without
It's totally impossible.
Removing all the structural building. Well,
right.
It basically just turned to dust.
It did.
I mean, I saw, on video, for what it's worth, I saw big sections of outer steel wall section falling in free fall. No forces on them acting on them, just trailing dust like Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah. Yeah, and those
exactly.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, bro?
I can.
That's a perfect way to describe it. I'd love her breakdown. Is Kevin able to talk? Did he somehow get muted in the process?
I'm here.
He hasn't said anything. I mean,
am I muted?
Looks like Kevin's having some technical difficulties.
Oh, I see. I'm replying to you guys on Rockfin and YouTube, but not on Colin. Okay, sorry. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, well, I mean, it is fairly amazing, like how that was pulled off, right? I mean, that's how the enormity of those structures and the speed with which they disintegrated and came down is just absolutely implausible that is somehow, done by gravity. Like, this is absolutely no way.
Taught me in engineering school said anything about that.
But
So, fun fact, Professor Stephen Jones, who's, Scholars for 9/11 Truth and associated with A&E 9/11, he, when Pons and Fleischmann were demonstrating cold fusion, he totally debunked and poo-pooed it. And I'm thinking that, that was a black technology that they had in their sleeve. They had all kinds of things. How do we know? It's
Right.
deep black projects. Do exist, of course.
Right.
sure.
Micronuclear devices do exist. And
Sure.
there were signatures of nuclear reactions. And a lot of people died from these rare cancers, the first responders.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It's just a head scratcher. I can't tell you what happened. I'm still working on it, but I can tell you what didn't happen.
Right.
And planes didn't punch through buildings without decelerating. That's
Right.
force equals mass times acceleration. Acceleration equals zero. There's no force.
Right.
Well, and there's also so many clips of the moment when those planes hit the building and they do weird things like shimmy and shimmer. The planes suddenly become kind of transparent, right?
Right.
The wings disappear or something. It just, yeah. There's no. It's
Again,
it's completely
I always
cartoonish.
refer back to Ace Baker's Great American Psy-Opera video.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun look behind the scenes. I was, heatedly in email lists with all of these guys, Ace and Judy and Fetzer and
Oh, wow.
what's his name? He was the economist under Bush. Morgan Reynolds. All of these guys. John Lear. Who just laid it on the line. These planes are not going to do 570 miles an hour at sea level. They would fall apart before they even. Let alone being controllable. That's
Right.
that's the easiest thing for me to debunk is the planes because it's just laughably bad.
It's laughably bad, and also the plane that hit, the Pentagon with no debris, and
And it hit the first floor.
and hit the first floor,
standing
traveling
on
at a
runway
very high
where
rate
the-
of speed,
the-
which
the
is
nose
impossible.
Is second floor height.
Right.
And
Right.
and planes that disintegrate into non-existent pieces, fragments when they hit the ground.
Inside the building.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right,
It's just not
But not even a rivet bounces back off the building.
right. It's just not possible.
There should have been a whole bunch of scrap of plane on the side of the building where it hit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why they couldn't use planes because real planes leave real serial numbered plane parts.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Right.
Right. Where were the Rolls-Royce engines, the titanium engines? So they would be four they'd have to recover, correct? Two from each plane. They don't melt.
Correct. Absolutely right. That titanium doesn't melt till around 3,900 degrees Fahrenheit, or even start to weaken.
Right. Yeah.
That's why they can use it in jet engines.
I mean, what are your? This was all built on an old military plan called Operation Northwoods, wasn't it?
Indeed. Right.
So what if this is just a culmination? Huh?
Again, in 1944, my dad was the navigator on a B-17 that was radio controlling a drone B-17 in 1944.
Wow.
They
Wow.
filled with
Wow.
high explosives. They were going to fly it into the V2 sites, but unfortunately they couldn't take it off, and that's how Joe Kennedy Jr. lost his life right in front of my dad's plane. It just exploded. 8 tons of high explosives.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
I mean,
So,
what?
Yeah,
It seems like this was maybe a culmination of a long,
Yeah, I mean,
a
I
long
always go
planned
back
like
to
exercise, right? And they thought like, well, we can do a whole lot of things if this particular thing happens, right?
right, and I mean, hat tip to Ace Baker. He goes back to War of the Worlds. That was an experimental test balloon right there. See how the
Sure.
people react to something that's a fake news report portrayed as a real news report,
Sure.
and they freaked out.
Well, what it proved is that people believe what they see on TV or what
Oh,
they hear on the
exactly.
radio.
When
They
there's
totally
someone
believe
with a
it. And
white coat,
yeah,
see
which
no
means
burns.
it's not far, right? Like you watch movies with all the CGI effects or, crazy kind of things that are physics defying. But I think we're primed to believe those things can happen because we watch these movies where all that stuff happens all the time, right? With these crazy effects and whatever it might be, and you're inundated by these CGI effects or special effects all the time, to the point where if you actually saw something like that happening on TV, you would be like, okay, right? Like you would, I mean, it worked, right? It worked.
Right. Predictive programming, you're saying.
It worked
So
because
let me ask-
people believed it because they saw it on TV that it actually happened, and there's no convincing them, even if they even if they might have engineering degrees. That's the amazing part to me is that.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Hollywood movies and they plant these fire bombs of whatever, and it looked the same.
Mm-hmm. Special effects.
Right.
The special effects, were a different thing than the actual destruction. The plane-shaped holes could very well have been thermite or thermite, but thermite has a max detonation speed. I mean, the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious thermite has a det velocity of 985 meters per second, and the speed of sound in steel is what is it, 2,500 meters per second. So in order to pulverize a material, you need an explosive with a detonation velocity higher than the speed of sound in that material.
Oh. Wow.
So, I mean, you could say that thermite mixed with high explosives could have maybe done it, but you could say the same about toothpaste.
Yeah. So people are asking about in the chat. Osama, I don't know if I asked you this last time. But are you're familiar with Rebecca Roth's work?
I am. It's interesting.
What do you think about it?
And I think about one of the most compelling things is she said that one of the passengers reported that the hijackers were upstairs on the plane.
Right.
And a 767 doesn't have an upstairs, but a hangar does.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, and her theory, I guess.
Draw your own conclusions.
Her theory is an interesting one, that they were flown to, was it Massachusetts?
I forget the military.
There was like an airfield outside of Boston.
Right.
That she thinks that the planes were flown there, that everybody on the plane was taken out.
I think there were only 2 planes. Because each of those planes was a quarter full. They could have actually fit all of the passengers from all 4 flights on one plane.
Right.
And ditched it over the ocean.
Sure.
But I think they just shot them.
You think they just shot them down?
Yeah. No, they shot the passengers.
Oh, shot like what she said. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Isn't it possible that the passengers are in a witness protection program? They're not dead at all. Little plastic surgery.
You go back to Olson's wife there, who was on the Flight 77 and was killed, and then he got remarried to some lady who looks like Barbara Olson with a nose job.
Whoa,
yeah, that's what I mean.
That makes me think of have you guys seen the we're jumping off subject here, but have you seen the video about the astronauts on the Challenger
Right.
have all reappeared as themselves 30 years later, holding jobs and with the same names, some of them with the same names.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah, if you look that up, I don't know if you've seen that, but Challenger astronauts are still alive. If you look, I mean, it's it's kind of wildly, it's pretty convincing, and it's kind of wild. Like, okay, they didn't really even try that hard to hide them, but I don't know.
I think they do that intentional in the sense that I think that way when people like us try and say, "Hey, check this out," it sounds so insane
So
to
wild,
people.
right?
They won't even look at it. They
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
even consider it.
Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, but I mean, you can hide in plain sight if it's just so implausible, right?
Hmm. That's true. That's true.
I mean,
It's
they had the biggest psychological tool at their disposal, the mainstream media,
right.
who were in on it, and they all should be in jail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
At least,
After a fair trial.
sure. But I don't, it's we're so
I don't,
we're so far away from like anybody even the. It's hard. I mean, I think it would be very easy to find. You could walk down the street, and most people would go like, "Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that story." But we're not
Right.
we're not anywhere close to people being concerned about it to the point of going, well, hey, uh, who did this? Why did they do this? They're still in control of the government. Maybe we should try and do something about this. Like, maybe we should, like people don't want to think about it or talk about it because they're too consumed with, trying to figure out their next paycheck, right?
Exactly.
I'm even sick of hearing myself.
Yeah.
No, it's so important though because we have events like Lahaina, we have Paradise. Those things need to be looked at too. I mean, and deconstructed. Uh, East Palestine. They're not involving explosives. The point I'm trying to make is the
Well, they did
the
blow
Brit-
up. They did blow up the toxic chemicals,
yes, right.
which was, I
Mhm.
mean, by a lot of accounts, was not necessary. And those cars had pressure valves on them. I mean, I don't. Was one ruptured? Do you know, William? I don't remember if one was ruptured.
The owner of the chemicals, oxyvinyl chloride, testified in the NTSB hearing. I think it was like 2 months ago. I lost track of time really, but that none of the rail tankers were ruptured. It was the material was going down in temperature. It was not polymerizing. The vents were totally functional, and they had requested for 3 days that trucks be allowed in because standard operating procedures. You just, you know, uh, get that material and export it in proper trucks. You see what I mean? And it's never been done before where they've had an open pit burn. Plus, I I used to work on federal Superfund sites with security clearances. I'm certified by Caterpillar to operate excavator, loader, dozer, etc. with OSHA 40-hour HAZWOPER, and they would never put anybody, if that material had the potential to explode, guys, they'd never put anybody between the tanker rail cars and the tracks to do a dig. There's no way.
No, I mean
No.
it doesn't make any sense on that level.
Well, the OSHA, no, you never risk a man's life to do that. So, or two men, because apparently they dug two burn pits. And the other thing that came out in the Cleveland 19 posted the FEMA, they had photographs of the rail cars. And Kevin and I went over this. Remember, Kev? I don't know if you want to go in that direction, but the total deception of the number of cars and number and volume of chemicals and different chemicals, right, Kev? Remember that
Yeah.
room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I know I'm sorry to let you know, but I've reached the end of my time. So
Oh, yeah, sure.
yeah, I'm gonna have
We're
to
so
wrap it up.
grateful for you, Kevin. You are just
Thanks, man.
excellent.
Thanks.
And
Yeah, amen.
I love you dearly, and being here every day. I know it's good for all of us.
I appreciate
That's
you,
really
man.
we
Yeah.
get to be among this group is just so high level, and I respect everyone so much and love them. Thank you guys, really.
Same here, brother.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. We have a good crew. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Okay,
Um,
take good care. We'll see you tomorrow.
all right, brother. Talk to you tomorrow. All right. Well, that concludes our yearly discussion of 9/11, and we'll all go back to our previously scheduled programs. But thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. I know get a little bit wacky sometimes. It's okay. It's all right. Lots of things to talk about and to think about, and lots of things to consider. You may not agree with me. That's okay. You don't have to agree with me. You can be mad at me. That's okay. Just I ask kindly that you consider, just for a little while, consider. What's that? Osama, what's going on, man? I didn't know if you were trying to call in again or not. Anyways, just consider what we were discussing today as, the possibility that it actually might be so. It might be important. Might be really important to understand. And maybe that's why some people have a hard time understanding it. It's because it's a lot to understand. Right. And I get it. All right. Thanks, everyone. I will see you tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Oh, no, actually, scratch that, strike that, reverse that. I don't know what time I'm going to be here tomorrow. I might be a little bit earlier. I might be here at like 10 a.m. It's a possibility that I'll be here at 10 a.m. So I will see you all tomorrow at a different time, but I look forward to it either way. Until next time, peace.